What is up, Retro Maniacs? Welcome to the Retro Card Chat podcast. I am Mike from Mike's Retro Trading Cards. I'm joined today by Mr. Marvel himself, the Tom Brady rookie card super collector, and the man who should have replaced Arn Anderson in the Four Horsemen, Mr. Joe Day. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. Let me get this podcast started the right way. Actually, I can't lie to the viewers. This is actually a root beer. But don't worry. I actually brought a growler to finish, but it doesn't make the same noise. So
yeah, okay, understandable.
Special effects.
And we are also joined by the man who never sleeps, even if he wants to, and the guy who just recently decided to send in 2 Mike Trout rookie cards that he's had since 2011 to PSA to get graded. We know him as EP, but his name is Mr. Eric Pahalik. How you doing, Eric?
I'm great. This is the podcast the hobby deserves and needs right now.
It definitely is. I totally agree. Oh, man. So today we're going to talk a little bit about HGA, Hybrid Grading Approach Grading Company. This should be an interesting discussion. They started off pretty hot, and let's just say they're not that hot right now. But let's hop in the time machine to start here. We're going to go back to the spring of 2021. PSA taps out and says, we can't take any more cards. We're done. We're out of here. And SGC is like, oh, crap. We're $75 a card now, so we can't take any more. Beckett doesn't say anything because they're Beckett and they've had cards for like 20 years and nobody's ever getting them back. And eventually they're like, oh, yeah, that's right. We're closed too. So, you know, everybody started looking around for different grading companies. Some new ones were popping up. And one of the most interesting ones, looking back at the time, was the company Hybrid Grading Approach, HGA, as we're going to call it from now on. And, you know, they had custom labels, which were really cool. They're something different for the industry. They were supposedly using AI to grade their cards, and it sounded promising at the time. And I remember my initial thoughts were, I love the labels. I thought the labels were like really cool. The custom labels, you know, certain cards I thought they would really work well, but, you know, just their labels being different and being able to match them to the card and stuff like that, I thought was really cool. And wasn't really sure where I stood on the artificial intelligence part of it, but, you know, it's different. And if it was something that would lead to a little bit of consistency in the market, I thought, well, I'd give it a shot. But, you know, I thought good things and I was willing to give it a shot. What about you, Joe?
So I'm with you, Mike. You know, we were looking around. So I had submitted, I think, around 30 cards to PSA. And I had started to put cards aside to submit again. And that's, you know, literally I was going to submit cards the next day and they closed down. So I was looking for someplace. I had not really gotten an SGC yet. And they were $75 a card anyway, which is no offense to SGC. I really, really am a fan, but I can't justify spending $75 to grade with them. So when HGA came out, they had, like you said, they had some good ideas with the labels. And I actually, it's kind of funny when you think about it. People say they don't care about labels until people care about labels. Yeah. Like people really say, oh, the label doesn't matter. But if they don't like the label, they freak out about it. I actually, I was a big fan of the label, and we'll probably go into some detail, I'm sure, but I was a big fan of the label, and I'm not one of those people that dislike subgrade. So I enjoyed that. It gave you an opportunity to see why your card was what it was. And I gave them a shot. I actually sent, not too high end, but I sent in some early Tom Brady cards, not rookie cards, probably from the 2002 to 2005 season or so. And depending on the label you pick, they look really, really good. And you can go back and look at some of the videos that we posted doing grading card reveals from HGA. And I think a lot of the labels, if you don't go overboard, look pretty nice. So I was willing to give them a shot, and I did a couple of times, actually.
What did you think, EP? You're not the biggest grader of the group here, so what were your thoughts?
Yeah, by far. I really liked the label. That was it was probably my favorite label at the time because I have one right here. I like the size of the grade, the grade number and the size of the player name. I just thought they really That's all I want on the label. I want the rest of the slab to show off the card, and I really like that about it. But yeah, I didn't. I had thought to myself, you know what? And I think I even tried to get into some of their lotteries, and I just wasn't able to get in. But I was on board as well, just like you guys.
And I have one here too. This is actually one of the Tom Brady's I graded. And if you go subtle with the labels, I think some of the onus has to be on the consumer, right? I think if you go subtle with the labels and do something like this, where it's a team match, it's pretty neutral.
Mhm.
And I apologize to the people that might be listening to us in their car on our iTunes. Make sure you subscribe. I'm sure if you went subtle like this, you'd be a little bit more receptive to it than if you went too flashy and all of a sudden it does take away from the look of the card, which you don't want to do.
Yeah. And am I remembering right? Did you get in before I did? I think to the lottery. I think
Yeah, I think
first
so,
time
yeah.
you got in. Yeah. So I know EP's going to have to sit this one out because he's not a big card grader, but both you and I have sent in multiple orders to HGA. And, at the time I was more than happy to send them in, as getting them back. They looked nice. I did a pretty good job of selling them too. The cards were fairly popular. I think they were selling better than SGC was back at the time. And, you know, got the orders back. They were pretty much on time. The slabs were really nice. Nice big slab and pretty clear. Thought they were off to a pretty good start. I felt like the grading was pretty accurate, for I've been doing this for 30 years, so I'm pretty confident in telling a grade of a card and can usually get pretty close unless you miss something. And they were right there with the stuff I sent in, and they were similar to the grades I got on similar cards from PSA. So I feel like they were in the ballpark as far as it came for the consistency of it. And back at that time, talking about the summer of last year, I was really happy with them. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I sent in I think 5 or 6 Brady cards from like that 2002 to I think 2009 was the last one I sent in. It was a Topps Chrome. The ones I wanted to sell, I sold. I sold them fairly quickly. I sold a 2009 Topps Chrome Brady base card. It was a HGA 9.5, and it looked like a 9.5. And like you said, to me it felt they were pretty accurate with the grade. So I I'm one of those people that if something comes back wildly different, I must have missed something generally.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the HGA, they seemed kind of where I had pre-graded them before I sent them in. And that Tom Brady actually sold, that Topps Chrome from '09 actually sold for a bit more than the equivalent SGC, which give me, again, no offense to HGA, give me the SGC slab or SGC
Yeah.
card any day of the week. I will agree with you absolutely. And I've never had a CSG slab in my hand. So just out of the slabs that I've had, it's the nicest actual slab. It's the clearest slab. It's a little less sturdy probably than BGS, but what it lacks in that little bit of sturdiness, it makes up for in clarity. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's more clear than an SGC slab. I think it's more clear and more sturdy than a PSA slab, to be honest. So, a lot of people, again, they complain about the label, they complain about slabs. The slab is pretty nice on these.
And you had people, I know there were people out there that would make fun of people that were sending cards into HGA, but really, what option did you have at the time? Like I said, I went over where all the other companies were. It was either grade a card with HGA or pretty much not grade a card at all. So, for $30, $20, whichever service level you choose, it was worth it. And, I'm not disappointed in what I got from them, but I am a little disappointed in where things went from there. Uh, you know, we're speaking pretty glowingly about them, and I think that really reflects how we felt at that point in time. I thought they really were an interesting company. I thought the label thing was cool, and they were developing a fan base. But over a period of time, the second part, probably from summer to winter of last year, they just seemed to have hiccup after hiccup after hiccup. I know there were a lot of people, excuse me, that were posting like grades that didn't add up to the subgrades. They'd have 4 subgrades that were 9s and the card would be a 7. And then there was a lot of the issues with them authenticating a fake Wayne Gretzky rookie card, which really hurt them. And, they were a new company. They had growing pains. Any company's going to have growing pains. But unfortunately, in my opinion, Tyler Hitt, the CEO of the company at the time, didn't really help them or help himself any, because he went on social media and he was very confrontational about stuff, and just like I read stuff as a business owner myself that just made me cringe. It's like, why are you saying this? Like, just back off, own the mistake, like fix it, let people know something happened and what you were going to do to make it right. But that wasn't the path he took. Do you remember that, EP?
Yeah, it was a stark contrast to where things started. Like you guys had just talked about. I mean, they came in with a competitive price, which is what they needed to do, and then also there's a point where I know I found a Russell Wilson 2012 Topps base card that was selling at, like, I think it was like PSA, SGC, and HGA were all kind of very similar, within like maybe $5 of each other or something like that. I know it's a base card; it's not like a super high end, but I mean HGA really was like climbing up, and then when all the stuff went bad and then things got worse, like you said, when with his response, like not great.
Not good.
Not
great. Yeah. And then he eventually went off social media, which, I can understand for his own mental health with the way things were going at the time. I can completely understand that. So I'm not criticizing that decision, but it seemed to me, Joe, like when he did that, there was nobody else there to take over. And that kind of started a ball rolling down the hill where, people were criticizing. Nobody was there to really explain anything, say what was going to be better. Like, for better or worse, how he reacted to the beginning stuff, at least he was the face of the company. And now they kind of had nobody.
Yeah. If you compare that to SGC, right? So a few weeks ago, SGC graded some fake Pokemon cards.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't that huge of a story, because even before the story broke from anyone else, SGC broke it themselves. And the president or CEO, whatever his title is over at SGC, he came out, went on Instagram Live or Twitter or whatever, and he explained what happened. And he was saying, we need to get better. We made this mistake. It shouldn't happen. It's on us. No one else did anything wrong. This is us. We should not have graded these. We should know better. HGA didn't want to do that. They wanted to if someone was coming at them, it's kind of like how I would respond, but I don't own a company, right?
No.
So he's coming right after people, like, pretty hardcore. And I will say, if you look, I say this all the time, thank God they didn't have social media when we were in high school or when we were in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think PSA needs to say, thank God they didn't have social media when we first started, because I'm curious how many mistakes, and people say, oh, you're just saying that, you don't have any proof. Mike, this might give you PTSD. This is a Bert Emanuel rookie card. Don't ask why I have this, but this is a Bert Emanuel rookie card. Look at the name, Brett Emanuel. Okay. His name's not Brett, it's Bert. But this probably was graded, from the look of the serial number, it was probably graded in the late 90s, early 2000s. Mm-hmm. But if this would have been graded in 2021, this would have hit social media. I think all companies are going to have growing pains. The problem is, when HGA first started, huge social media presence for cards at that point. If there was less social media presence, I think some of that stuff would have just went away. And then with their president kind of poking back at people, it just expanded a news cycle that probably would have died off after a couple of days.
Yeah. EP.
So what do you think would have happened if, instead of Tyler Hitt running things on social media, they had hired a social media manager, somebody in charge of that kind of stuff, somebody that like had done this kind of stuff before? Where do you think we would be right now? Would we even be having this conversation, do you think?
No, probably not. No. I think
Probably.
that was part of the problem, that they needed to hire a professional to handle that kind of stuff, because he clearly wasn't ready for it himself.
I agree, but I will say again, I'm not defending HGA because they've done some stupid things, and then how they responded to them was worse, right? It's always the cover up; it's not the crime, right? But what I will say is, you have Nat Turner, who owns PSA, going out there and complaining about the redemption time of his Panini cards or his Topps cards or whatever it was.
I saw
A-
that.
And I'm like, wait a minute, you're the president or owner or whatever your title of PSA, and you're complaining about wait times from another company? Are you kidding me? So I think Tone Deaf runs in the business, because that was some major 10-year. But I agree, EP. If someone was running it who knew what they were talking about, or knew how to talk in social media world, I think it would have been different. It wouldn't have been someone like me. Probably would have been closer to someone like you, EP.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I understand. I think a lot of the collectors universe, like, they know they're going to make mistakes. Everybody, all the grading companies still make mistakes. So, like, you know, for the people that just want to bury a company for whatever reason, they're just doing it because they want to do that. Like, how a company fixes what they did wrong is really what's important. Did, like, SGC, did they learn something from it? Yeah. Are they going to do better in the future? Yeah, that's all any of us want to know. Like, all the different cards out there, and let's be real, like, the fakes are getting really good. Like, back when I had to shop in the 90s, you could tell a fake a mile away. No, but now with the ability to print like you can print with the high-end printers, and you get the cards, like, it's way easier to do good fakes. And some of the stuff's going to slip through. I'm sure a lot of it actually does, more than we really know about, but, like, you just need to get out in front of it and own it, and grow from it when you have these things happen.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons that I'm actually it's weird, because you can't open up boxes of 2000 football right now because it's so expensive, right? But the only way I would feel comfortable, even the cards that I have in my Tom Brady rookie card collection now, I get a little nervous that maybe something did slip through. You always kind of have that thought. The only one I know for a fact that didn't was the one that you pulled from your shop inventory, Mike. But honestly, the way fakes are, I mean, or reprints, right? How they're sold on eBay, the way fakes are being made now, it's really easy to get past a company. And you kind of wonder, again, in 1999, 2000, 2001, how many fakes actually got through PSA at the time. You don't really know. I mean, they weren't as good, but neither was PSA, neither was Beckett in grading. So this happened more publicly for HGA than I think it did when those companies were starting out, which really was a detriment.
Well, unfortunately, things didn't get better for them. After the initial wave of problems, the counterfeit cards and stuff, they really kind of disappeared a little bit from social media. I know, I believe their main Twitter account, they, like, somehow, I don't know what the story was behind it, but they had to start a new Twitter account, and some people thought they were closed up, and no press release out there saying what happened or why this is. And again, going back to not having that person to run the social media that knows what they're doing. And uh, all those things happened, and then they started to get behind, and they started to get a backlog, which they can't be getting that many cards, so they must be getting rid of employees. And the place that started off where they said where 30 days means 30 days, or where 10 days means, like, they totally blew that promise to collectors. So I know the head of SGC, he's always talking about wanting to over deliver and under promise. And it seemed like HGA had that problem where they over promised everything and they under delivered, and it just seemed like that snowball kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where I don't want to say they're a joke now, but to a lot of collectors they are.
I think one of the biggest problems that they did was stopping the lottery. I think once the scarcity was taken out, the scarcity of being able to submit cards was taken out. Not only did it seem not as, oh, I won the lottery with HGA, I can send these cards in. It kind of lost some of its luster, but then beyond that, they couldn't fulfill the demand because at the time, again, PSA was closed down, SGC was $75 a card, BGS was closed down. So they couldn't fulfill that demand, which became a problem. And then it just started, like you said, it started to snowball and snowball and snowball. And now people are worried about, will we get our cards back before the inevitable shutdown happens? And not just a shutdown like PSA shutdown, a shutdown like close the doors, lock them up. People are getting pink slips.
And it makes you wonder, why did they do away with the queue? Like, as a business person my whole life, it kind of smelled to me like we need money, so let's not limit the amount we can take. We'll just take all these people's orders, because you pay up front for HGA. Once they have your card, you paid for them, you have to wait. So I feel like that was a dirty trick. I feel like I don't think that wasn't intentional. I feel like they needed cash flow, they needed revenue, and they decided, you know what, do away with the allocations. We'll just take a bunch and we'll try to deal with it when it comes. I could be wrong, but if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, might be a duck. Right, EP?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. Again, this is my conversation that I'm not 100% part of, because I never send anything to them. Actually, I've only sent 3 cards in to get rated total so far. But I think going back to what you said about the social media account, the Twitter account being dumped and restarted, I wonder if they hired somebody who came in and said, let's just delete this thing and start fresh, start over. That seems like the kind of thing like a social media manager would do when they walked in. I agree with you too, Mike, where if you are not making enough money to... I don't remember if people were able to get in on the lottery. Like, were they filling their lottery every time still when they got rid of it?
At the beginning,
for the most, yeah. Once they raised it up, like, I forget what, 15 or 20,000, and then they weren't filling them all right away. But I think usually by the next week they had filled the allocations. So
the 5,000 one went like that. It was quick and it was hard to get in.
I tried quite a few times before I finally got in for that. I know I probably did it 5 or 6 different times before I got in. I remember being exciting back then, like, oh yes, I got in. So
I have to say, despite me not grading anything, I did try. I entered into the lottery a couple times just because, like that, like Joe was saying, that was kind of like the hype was made it almost feel exclusive, like you wanted to kind of be part of it.
And that's a good point, because you're not somebody who really grades a lot of cards, but here that company had you trying to get an allocation, thinking about sending them cards. So, that shows they were doing something right at that point in time. That's why, like, even though you aren't grading, I think your perspective is really good to have in this discussion. Joe and I send a lot of cards in to get graded, but you don't. So what can make a company get you to do that? And here they were, they had you on the hook. They just didn't quite reel you in. And do you think if you would have gotten an allocation, you would have actually sent a couple in?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Like I said, at the time, I kind of rated their label as my favorite label out of all the companies. Like I really liked that. Like I said, the number was big, the name was big, and their slab looked pretty nice. I bought one, on eBay just to have one here, and but yeah, I for sure would have sent in probably as many cards as I could as they let me send in.
I mean, and you've got to think too, Mike, kind of what you were saying about what HGA was doing. We need more capital, right? So we're gonna get rid of the lottery and we're just gonna start accepting cards. Kind of what PSA is doing right now, right? like they must need more capital because they are putting out 20 card slots in a lottery when they have
Yeah.
they still have my cards from almost 16 months ago, 15 months ago. I'm hoping I get them for my birthday in September. So
Yeah.
it's so PSA is doing the same thing. It's just PSA's PSA. So it's cool. We're cool with it. We're cool with PSA doing whatever they want to do.
But at
And I
least in PSA's defense, and I'm not their biggest defender, at least you can see where
progress.
they're putting their money. They've hired a lot of new people. They're going to open up East Coast facility. They have a
We're all
lot
applying
of
for jobs. We're applying for
yeah,
jobs.
I'm gonna run the place. And they've bought other collectors kind of things. So, I can understand a big company like that, wanting to get their revenue going. I mean, I'm the guy who got my cards back early, so it's easy for me to say.
Yeah, I
I,
know.
I totally understand the people who have them there, how you could be frustrated, but I do understand from their perspective, they have to get some revenue coming in. So,
And I agree with that, but I will say they would get revenue coming in if they graded what they had because they don't charge up front. So if they
yeah,
grade what they have, they're still that's the point though. They don't want to grade what they have because that's $20 a card. They want to
yeah.
grade what they want to grade $300 card, $300 to grade, 150, 150. They want to grade those because that's more money. I get what you're saying. I agree that they're trying to do some things and expand, but it's like, oh, those $20 a card cards. There we can wait on those. We
Some of
want
them might be
higher.
less too. Yeah, because a
Yeah,
lot of them may have gotten there before the price
right.
increase. They might have been $12 cards.
That's
So,
probably why
yeah.
they're so bogged down now.
This
But
this is a little off topic, of course, but if would you guys love to go into PSA and see like what's the room where they grade the $300 cards and the room where they grade the like $20 cards, like and the number of people that are doing everything, like and the number like the stacks of cards in those rooms and everything. Like I would be very very cool to just be a little fly in the wall or just walk in and see their security cameras or something.
the
Like to see
the
what's
12
going on.
the $12 submissions are in your apartment, EP.
Yeah. Yep.
And the
Yeah.
$300 ones are at the White House right now. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of probably the comparison.
Yeah. But back to HGA, so we've hit on their good start. We've hit on the issues they've had, but the real question I think is what happens to them from here. I put a poll on our Twitter, and the poll results. The question was, do you think that HGA will be open in 1 year? It was actually 59 to 41%, with the 59% saying they thought they would not be around in another year. Obviously, none of us know, but I mean, people are definitely worried. I'm glad I don't have cards with them because, like you said, you don't know. I hate to be negative. I would like to see them succeed. I want to see, all kinds of companies succeed. I think competition is good for the whole industry, but, I just don't know if it's reasonable, Joe.
The way if the trajectory goes the same way it's been going, no, they won't. I didn't vote in the poll because I kind of wanted to be surprised by the results. I didn't want to see what it was. But if it keeps going the way it's going, it'd be hard to because you alluded to it earlier, Mike. They're kind of a joke right now. They're a joke
Yeah.
within the hobby. They're
Sadly,
a joke, and I'll tell you what, as an aside, buying opportunity. I
Mhm.
think if you can find the equivalent card of, I like you mentioned before, I buy Tom Brady rookie cards. If I can find a rookie card, Tom Brady rookie card in HGA slab, I can crack that and send it somewhere. I'm sure it's graded within reason.
Yeah, funny you say that. Earlier today, I was actually adding some cards to my watch list on
Yeah.
eBay. Now, the ones that are on auction, like I'm not
Mhm.
putting the ones that are fixed
No.
price, but the ones that are on auction, I might take a chance on some of them. Yeah.
I have 2 cards right now that are fixed price. Like I said, I got 6, I think 6 Brady cards, and 2 of them didn't sell. And I keep getting offers for them, and they're not super low ball, but I think it is a buying opportunity. Again, that being said, if they keep going the direction they're going within a year, there's no way they can survive, because the secondary market drives so much of this, and they have nothing of value right now in the secondary market. People are buying or wanting to or expecting to buy HGA cards, graded cards, for half of an SGC or a PSA or BGS. They're just not going to put the money into it, and eventually they'll just dry up. People won't even put them out because they know they can't get money for them.
Yeah. EP, what do you think?
I was one of the people who voted yes, they'll be around in a year. And when I voted, it was, I think, 39% said yes. So it was, it kind of evened out as the voting went along. But I think they'll be around. I'm not sure if they'll be on their last leg at that point. I'm assuming they'll be around for a little bit longer. I wonder if they can. I mean, maybe I'm just hopeful that, like same kind of things you guys said, where competition is good and everything for the industry, and I'm hoping they kind of right the ship. But I'm, can't be 100% sure about that. But I think they'll be around, and I think I wonder if they can find a place somewhere in the hobby. It's going to be really tough to do, though. Like they're in such a bad place right now.
Okay, let's have a little fun here to end things. Joe, if you were somehow gifted HGA and you're now running it, what would you do to try to bring that company back?
I would actually, well, first off, I would stop taking unlimited submissions, right? I would try and get back to being something that could be sought after, something with some scarcity, right? So I would go back to a lottery, which, by the way, PSA stole. Everyone made fun of HGA's. Yeah. Everyone made fun of HGA's lottery until a PSA did, and they're like, "Oh my god, that's such a great." It's like when the XFL came out and the NFL started stealing some of their ideas. But I would consider going back to a lottery system. Social media, I would hire someone specifically, a public information officer or something immediately. EP's available.
There you go.
You got to do
we
that.
We got Joe working for Fanatics and EP working for HGA.
And then I would say, we talked about this in our the Fanatics podcast, talking about influencers. I try and find an influencer. Try and find someone you can say, oh, this person loves HGA. This is I mean, even if it's sports card investor or one of those type of people who can get behind HGA. I think you need someone with some sort of clout to say, oh yeah, they actually do grade pretty well. They actually have nice slabs. And you know what? Since I'm involved now, we can clean up some of this stuff that every other company has gone through, but we're just doing it under the microscope of social media. So you kind of have to play it like that. But I think the first thing is you got to get the cards out the door that are there, because people are waiting 60, 90, 120 days for a 30-day order with
way too long
with a third-rate company at this point.
EP?
Well, my first order of business would be and I'm thinking of Roller Coaster Tycoon, which I know you know about, Mike.
Love that game.
If you are going to make money in that game, you need to make sure you have people pay to get in. Having to pay for the rides is great, but I think if you started like a membership type of service where you got people to pay and to sign up, and the people that are actually the fans, get them to sign up, be part of a membership, and then members get a certain number of $8 cards per month or something like that, or maybe every 6 months, depending on what the workload is. But you get those people in, and some of those people can be your the people that can speak for your company and say, hey, look, let's do this. But I think you really need to, like Joe said, you really need to find your fans, bring them in, and turn them into your evangelists, so they can go out into the hobby and make things happen for you.
You need HGA fanboys.
Yes.
Yeah, you do. My thoughts, I'm surprised they didn't try to veer more toward Marvel cards, non-sports cards, and gaming cards. I feel like with the custom labels and everything, there was a lot of potential there. Saw some of the Marvel cards and they look fantastic in there. And I feel like a lot of the collectors of those aren't quite as brand loyal to PSA. Yeah, like I know PSA gets more Pokemon cards than anybody, but
Mhm.
I feel like you can still, like, if that was an area where they had potential and they just seem to let it slip. So I would try to go for that. I know it's not a huge market, especially if you're not getting all the Pokemon cards, but maybe concentrate on the other gaming cards, maybe Magic the Gathering cards and
Mhm.
maybe Yu-Gi-Oh cards and the Marvel cards. Like, find your little niche market to begin with and maybe build off of that. So that's where I would go with it. But what do I know?
Did they
The
have any limits on what you could send in? Like, I know that some of the places you can't send in like Pokemon or gaming and stuff. Like,
I think
did they have
they
anything?
did on some of the gaming cards, because I believe Magic, and I don't know if it was Yu-Gi-Oh too. Some of them were too thin that they didn't have a slab that it would be secure in. So I think they weren't doing those. But like, you know, get a new slab.
Right.
I don't
right
know, like that. Like
or a
I
sleeve
just
or put
feel
a
like
Yeah,
there
sleeve.
was
inner
somehow,
sleeve. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that I feel like there's something they could have done to, open up the potential market there. Not that it's huge market, but again, with the Marvel cards, everybody, Joe, you are Mr. Marvel, the 1990 Marvel universe. Like, you can't send them into PSA for $50 a card.
No.
$30 a card at SGC, you're kind of pushing things. CSG doesn't take them because CCG handles the comic
Right.
cards. So, if you opened like a $10, $12 service and took non-sports and Marvel cards, like, I bet they would have had a lot of people.
And I think it was a Stan Lee card that someone had graded with HGA, and I think I sent that picture around to you guys months ago when it happened. It was really
Mhm.
cool. The
Yeah.
custom logo was really cool. I know, and this is going back to what they've done bad. I know they got in a little bit of trouble too for using copyright images.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I will say that had stopped. I tried to get my fantasy football logo as a label image for one of it was a Christian McCaffrey card I was sent in. They're like, oh no, this is copyrighted. By the way, as much as we bust on them, their customer service is the best I've interacted with. I've interacted
Oh,
with
good.
HGA's customer service numerous times throughout all my orders, and they were the most responsive, very quick, and very accommodating. SGC was second, PSA was 23rd. But you're right, Mike. I think Marvel cards would look great in that slab. And there is an opening because if you look at PSA, yes, the PSA 10s go for a lot, but nothing else does.
Yeah.
SGC 10s don't really go for that much. No nines really go for anything. So if you could do a $12, $15 submission for Marvel cards, I think there could be a market, especially if you could find some way to do a custom label that wasn't infringing on copyrights, but
Yeah.
also looked good with the card.
Yeah, definitely.
And having the hopper too, like say, these are the ones we offer for Thor. These are the ones we offer for
Mhm.
Captain America. Use the Pat Tillman one
Oh,
because
yeah.
that is one of the biggest HEA cards. That's something they should have used to build on was that
Right.
Oh,
Pat
yeah.
Tillman one.
That's
People
a
want
beautiful
that.
card. Yeah,
People want
beautiful.
that more than they want SGC Pat Tillman card because it looks
Mhm.
so good in the slab with the label.
Yeah, they do. Okay, boys. Well, that should wrap us up for this week. Thanks for joining the Retro Card Chat, and we will be back next week. Take care, boys.
See ya.